Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to trace humanity's ancient and honestly ongoing quest to build a mechanical mind. This isn't just some dry story about wires and glowing screens, it's a massive, sweeping journey. We're talking about an evolution that stretches all the way from fingers sliding wooden beads in the dry Mesopotamian sands straight into the mind-bending physical realities of the quantum realm. Ultimately, it's the story of how we learn to take our own thoughts and extend them into the physical world. So what does it actually mean to build a mind? To really wrap our heads around this, we have to completely reframe how we think about computing. For thousands of years, computing wasn't something machines did at all. It was a chore, a manual, human chore. The actual word computer used to literally be a job title. It was given to people who sat in drafty rooms, manually crunching long mathematical tables. And let's be honest, human minds get tired, and tired minds make mistakes. It really wasn't until a few visionaries in the 1830s started dreaming that we finally began to imagine an end to all those tired human errors.
Act 1. The Mechanical Dawn.
Way back before modern silicon was even a thought, we're talking about a dark Victorian-era workshop in London. The English mathematician Charles Babbage envisioned a steam-powered machine he called the analytical engine. And the design was profound. It completely separated processing, which he called the mill, from memory, which he called the store. But it was his collaborator, Ada Lovelace, who really hit the nail on the head. She saw that if numbers could represent music, symbols, or art, well, the machine could manipulate anything. In 1843, she wrote the very first algorithm intended for a machine. She basically became the world's first programmer, realizing a whole century before anyone else that computers could actually be partners in human creativity.
Let's move on to Act 2. The Fire of War.
Fast forward a bit to the 1930s. A brilliant young mathematician at Cambridge named Alan Turing dreams up this theoretical device to compute abstract logic. He essentially shifted the dream of a thinking machine away from heavy, clunky brass gears. But what's absolutely crucial here is the existential catalyst of World War II. The war violently transformed computing from a mathematical curiosity into a literal weapon for survival. Over at Bletchley Park, Turing and his team built electromechanical machines to crack Nazi Enigma codes. Soon after, British engineers built Colossus, the world's first programmable electronic digital computer. They completely abandoned slow physical gears, using glowing vacuum tubes to process information at the literal speed of electricity. Meanwhile, over in America, that exact same wartime urgency produced a towering behemoth known as ENIAC, which was completed in 1945. Picture this, a massive room completely filled with black cabinets, thick cables, and thousands upon thousands of glowing glass tubes. ENIAC weighed a staggering 30 tons. To put that into perspective, it drew so much power that it reportedly dimmed the streetlights of Philadelphia whenever it was turned on. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Despite processing at the speed of electricity, ENIAC had a massive physical flaw. It had absolutely zero internal memory for programs. That meant every single time you wanted it to perform a different task, female operators had to physically walk around and rewire the entire machine by hand. They had to plug patch cables into these giant, super complex switchboards. It was the ultimate bottleneck. You want to run a new program? Grab your walking shoes and 100 cables. We clearly needed a better way. Enter Act 3, the Silicon Revolution. Okay, to solve the problem of those vacuum tubes, which, by the way, were incredibly hot, fragile, and constantly burning out, computing required a completely new material foundation. We had to get away from glass and glowing filaments, and it is wild how rapidly time and physical size compressed from here. In late 1947, at Bell Labs, William Shockley, John Bardeen, and Walter Brattain invented the solid-state silicon transistor, just a tiny switch controlling electricity without a vacuum or a physical wire. Then, by 1958, Jack Kilby and Robert Noyce figured out how to etch multiple components right onto a single sliver of silicon, birthing the integrated circuit or microchip. We went from a 30-ton room to a tiny sliver of silicon in just over a decade. Because of this massive, almost unbelievable reduction in size, computers fundamentally changed their relationship with humanity. They shrank down to desktop appliances and sparked this incredible 1970s garage culture revolution. You had hobbyists soldering circuit boards for the Altair 8800 DIY kit, while a young Bill Gates and Paul Allen were writing its software. Soon enough, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were literally building the Apple I in a suburban garage. By the time the Macintosh introduced the graphical user interface and the mouse in 1984, computers had totally evolved. They went from these cold, room-sized scientific calculators into friendly, personal tools for writing, expression, and just pure play. And the pace just kept accelerating. Act 4, the connected mind. In 1989, Tim Berners-Lee creates the World Wide Web at a Swiss physics lab, instantly turning those isolated desktop boxes into a global portal. Fast forward to 2007, and the smartphone shoves the equivalent of a 1980 supercomputer directly into your pocket. Suddenly, we became permanently connected. And because we're constantly connected, we're now generating massive oceans of data every single second. This unimaginable influx of data, it's exactly what laid the groundwork for the warehouse-sized artificial intelligence systems we're seeing today. Which brings us to the cutting edge, Act 5, Beyond Silicon, the future. But right now, computing is facing its next great existential crisis. For decades, the whole industry has relied on Moore's Law, the rule of thumb that transistors on a microchip double about every 2 years. Well, we're hitting a hard physical limit. If you zoom deep into a modern microchip, down to the atomic scale, things get really weird. Transistors are now approaching the width of a single atom. And at this scale, electrons literally begin to leak right through physical barriers. It's this chaotic phenomenon called quantum tunneling. Because electrons are leaking through these barriers like water, silicon is officially out of room. We are being forced to completely reinvent what a computer actually is. So the race is on across 3 revolutionary frontiers that abandon traditional silicon entirely. First up is quantum computing, using qubits in superposition to optimize things like global supply chains in a matter of seconds. Second, we have optical computing. This replaces heat-generating electrons with photons, processing data at the actual speed of light to eliminate heat issues. And third is neuromorphic computing, where chips are designed to perfectly mimic human biological brain synapses, processing data exactly like our brains do for incredibly low power consumption. As we pull back from those gleaming, copper-coiled quantum chips and return to that very first image of a human hand tracing patterns in the Mesopotamian sand, a really profound realization starts to emerge. From the simple abacus all the way to a modern neural network, our machines have always just mirrored our own minds. It's a beautiful, infinite loop. I'll leave you with this final thought for our explainer today. We started this journey thousands of years ago, building simple tools merely to calculate and ease the burden on our tired minds. But today, we are building vastly complex systems designed to learn, to adapt, and perhaps one day to truly understand. So, what limits will we finally break when our machines can dream right alongside us?